G'day, welcome to Clinical Trader. Today we're going to look at the Australian dollar, gold, the S&P ASX All Ordinaries, silver and Bitcoin. So stay tuned and enjoy. So we'll start off looking at the Australian dollar. Here is its chart. You can see up here we're looking at the weekly chart, and I'm using a Heikin-Ashi candle system to analyse what's happening with the progress. You can see the March lows over here, and since then the Australian dollar has rallied quite significantly. And if I just zoom in, you'll see how far that dip actually went. Came a long way down and then retraced all the way back up and then headed higher. So a really significant move for the Australian dollar. I'll also point out that you can see that in terms of the Bollinger Bands percentage, we hit above the number one line and then retraced, signalling the beginning of the downtrend in the Australian dollar. And when we entered into the zero bound, once we turn around, you can see that from there we head higher. So what we see is an indicator this heads up and down, and gives us a bit of an idea about whether or not we're overbought or oversold. And you can see at present that this indicator is telling us that the Australian dollar is currently overbought. But we wouldn't be too concerned until we see it rolling over and actually cross back below the one line, like it did over here, And you can see that in each case it does prelude a fall in the Australian dollar. Now, usually what that would indicate in terms of the stock market is that when the Australian dollar falls, the market goes higher. When the Australian dollar rises, the market really struggles to make gains, and the rallies are often short and it can be very difficult. So you can see here that we're basically at a point, if it does roll over and heads lower, that should be positive for stocks. But we need really to wait and see how this plays out. Technically speaking, we'll look at a couple of lines here. So I see this sort of descending line down through here from, August 2011, when it was at a high of $1.10. So if we join these high points up, you can see that there is a bit of a trend. And actually it does break down. If you join these low points, you can see this is where it breaks down right here. Okay. I'll clone that to see if we have any kind of channel the price is working its way down into. You can see if I put those together, we do get a little bit of correspondence there, but it's not a great deal. If I take off the logarithmic chart, you can see what happens. It's not overly clear. We have a couple of points where it touches, breaks through, rebounds, breaks through. So this is a bit messy through here. We touch again here, touch here, and it looks like it's broken out and is heading higher. If we don't have a channel, there is the possibility that we have the following scenario, whereby we take this low and we join those points together. And it's possible that maybe we're right about there. And you can see that we've broken through that. So that's quite a bullish scenario, that we would head up higher. But I'll point out a few things that will probably act to make it difficult for the price to head higher here. The first is, I'll just put in this little rectangle here. So there's our high. This might be a point at which we see it stop. Okay, we have these previous highs, join them together. So you got one there, one over here, one there. You just can't get through that price. And that's basically from 2015 onwards. We've had a lot more money printing and low interest rates. So I would think that this really is the absolute high mark that the Australian dollar could get to. We also have this lower bound here where we have the volume profile really sticking out a long way. So this indicates where we've had a lot of volume of trading at that price, way back over in these areas over here. So I'd also consider that to be a point at which the Australian dollar might stop. Perhaps you line up with that low over here. You know, that might be something you look at in terms of the top. And if that was the case, then we are basically in that zone right now. And that might tell us that from here we might actually head lower, come back down here perhaps. And then we see where we're at that point. Perhaps we just line it up with these bottom ones and end up descending down to this line here. We really need to see how this top plays out over the next little while. So that's what I sort of have in mind for the Australian dollar. I actually think that we will top out here. It's had a really good run, and we are overbought, as you can see by the indicator over here. We also have divergence occurring. I'll show you that here. I can't do it with this one. Whereby we have, sorry, wrong one. Although it does show up here, you can see we've got the high here, and then from here it gets lower, drops down, but it still hasn't made a new high, okay, on the indicator. Same with the price. Sorry, opposite of the price. We've got a high, but we've had higher highs in the price. So that trend is up, this trend is down. So that's divergence. So that's a possibility too. And you'll notice that that's the case up here. We've got that high there, but we have not gone anywhere near a new high here. So if in fact this is to become a bearish move, this will have to roll over and make a lower high and then head lower from there. Same with this one here. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out though. And of course we are looking at the weekly chart. If we zoom into the daily chart, there's that high point. You can see that we've entered into this potential resistance point up here. So if that rolls over, we'll head lower. We'll just have to play that by ear. And of course that will be determined by the United States dollar as well, because this is comparing the Australian dollar to the United States dollar. So we will have to wait and see and just play it by ear. But I'll probably sit more on the bear side than the bull side for this move, just because this move has been remarkable. You know, from all the way down here at 56 cents to get all the way up to 76 cents, that's quite a big move. Okay. And economically, what's going on economically really doesn't support this in the longer term. So I do expect we'll roll over in the future. And now we'll move over to gold. Okay, so now we're looking at gold in US dollars. You can see up here we've got USD on the end there. And so we'll take a look at that. We'll start off with our weekly chart. Just zoom out and you can see that gold has done extraordinarily well, really since about October 2018. You know, it breaks out above this resistance line here. You can see that it sort of peaks out here. Once that breaks, really, you know you're in for a pretty good rally. Previous high was back here in 2011. Okay, much like the Australian dollar, interestingly. If we put that high in, you can see that just track that all the way across. And you can see there that the price of gold really came up, smashed straight through this resistance point, which is really quite interesting because normally it would stop, consolidate for a bit and then have a go. But it's actually gone straight through it and it's since pulled back. You can see that we've made this recent low on the weekly chart. You can also get a bit of an idea about this upward trending line. You know, where do you start it is the question. You know, is it there? Is it here? I mean, is this an anomaly? Zoom in, have a look at that. You might argue that yes, it was, and that you know, maybe this is where we're at in terms of price. It did actually rebound twice off that upward trend and has continued to go higher. And you can see on some of these indicators, you know, we're starting to see this squeeze momentum indicator break above this red line. This can be at times an indication that price is about to go higher when that happens. if it's in the red area, but if it's in the green area, price is about to go lower. You can see up here that yes, it did go lower. We've gone lower. Again over here, that's the point right there. It does go lower, and vice versa. Okay, so that's where it turns around, heads higher. Turns around, heads higher. And so that is a fairly common move. And the Bollinger Band percentage often gives us a bit of an indicator too, and you can see that it did roll over, much like that Australian dollar, made that high, rolled over, and as soon as it crossed that zero, down we went. And you can see that since that time we've been descending essentially. However, it's all turning around literally this week, and I'm looking forward to seeing higher prices. You can see the MACD crosses over and is now heading higher, and this has turned around. I was kind of expecting this might actually get a bit lower. In an ideal world, you would see it cross, turn, and then head higher. It, however, has not done that. It didn't make it, and that might be due to that upward trending line that just really put a stop to the downtrend, and that can happen. So that's not that uncommon. Also, you can see on here this downtrend. If we join the high and just join this peak here, you can see that we've touched it just once. All right, and so interesting to see what happens if gold can get through this previous old high way back over there, to see if we can actually go higher. That's something that I'm really keen to see, and we'll see if it tops out. You know, I'm probably more on the bullish side than the bearish side, because if I look at silver, and we'll do that later, that's already broken this downtrend and is heading higher. So let's go down to the weekly. Sorry, the daily. I'll just tidy this up. So there's that high just in here. Comes down through here. Alright, there's that low point there. Kind of matches up pretty good, I think. I kind of discounted this because that's that March sell-off that was just crazy. There was a bit of an anomaly, so I left that out. And you can see that when I do that, we've got a touch here as well, and then we touch over here, and now we're heading higher. That was November 27. Gold stocks did not head higher from here. They had to wait a bit longer. I think it was around about here, the 15th, when we saw them bottom, and they turned around as well. So it's this descending trend line that I'm looking at. I am expecting price will get up here. It'll be interesting to see what happens when these two converge, that downtrend and that horizontal. If we get a massive breakout through here, it is absolutely game on. And we'll see what happens. We're a bit overbought, but it can absolutely go higher. It's done it many times in the past, and that may in fact happen. We might get a shoot up, possibly up to this previous high here. Could be somewhere over here, for example, and we may come back, test that, and then head higher. That's probably what I'm expecting with more stimulus on the way in the United States. So that's what I'm thinking in terms of US dollars for gold. The other thing I can do here is once again clone that descending line. If I take that, it actually does make quite a good descending rail or pattern. Okay, so it stays within there. You can see that if we started here, it touches and then touches here, and then we head higher. So again, you know, this might act as a bit of a resistance point. We may have to come down. We may even test this again and then head higher from there. We won't know any of this until it occurs. So we'll have to wait and see. I would dare say if this uptrending line convincingly broke down here, I would think that we're probably headed for lower prices, perhaps somewhere in this area here where we would see a lot of past trading occur. So it's possible we could get all the way down to 1730, maybe even as low as 1696 or around that 1700 mark. That might be a point where we would see price stop that falling price action. You can see on the squeeze momentum that is starting to look a bit bearish. We may roll over, and again here that's getting a bit overbought. So we may hit this pause or go through it, I'm more inclined to think it will go through only because silver has already. We'll look at the Australian dollar gold real quick. So like I said earlier, with stocks, they act inverse to the Australian dollar. So if we do see that Australian dollar roll over, I would expect the same would happen with Australian dollar gold. Okay, so I'll start it back here. You can see that we touched over here and we went higher. We've now touched there again. We had that first attempt to go higher, it rolled over, made a second bottom, and now it's trying again to break through. So it kind of matches up with that Australian dollar, okay, in the sense that, you know, it was indicating that may roll over. If that was to happen, I would expect that we would see the price of gold and Australian dollars really take off. Now we might find that it stalls somewhere up in this area here. We might get up here, a bit of a stall, could pull back perhaps, and then have another crack at it. We've also got that same downtrend that we saw in US gold, like so. Again, if I clone that, you can see that, let's see if there's a channel that forms with Australian gold. Almost. Okay, so there's that low there. We actually break through it, hit this low, go back through, and then here's the perfect little spot right there. So at this point here, you've got support horizontally, and you've got support of this downtrend line. This was the ideal point to be buying and entering into gold, whether it's derivatives or physical gold in Australian dollars. You know, is it possible we could actually do the same on the upside, hitting this point up in here? Absolutely. That would place us at December 29, the end of the month. Can we get there? Yes, of course we can get there, but we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. So that's gold update, and next we'll move on to some other different types of assets. Okay, we can see the Australian All Ordinaries Index. I'll just point out this upward trend we've had since 1982. You can see that it's been fairly consistent in terms of its upward trend over a long period of time. I mean, this is essentially the impacts of inflation. You know, that's what you would expect to see over time. So that, you know, that's really good. I mean, it is what it is. You can see over here, this is the GFC. We come down here, this is February 2009, right in this area. And you can see that again, that the upward trend has continued. Okay, and it's been really, I guess if you were smart enough at the time, it's been really easy to pick this channel heading higher. However, that's hindsight. It's not so easy to pick at the time. Maybe if you started with the low here and the low here, you might be able to, you know, work out fairly quickly that this is going to form a channel. But again, that's hindsight for you. And you might have bought down here, but you'd only be selling if that trend line ever broke. And you can see that if you had done that, you were handsomely rewarded all the way to the top up here. I just put this rectangle in here to point out, you know, where this high was in the past. And of course, we're now over here. And I guess the question is, you know, what happens from here? Just zoom in here. So here's that March drop off we saw. This is, all these lines are old. I've had these on here for quite some time. Some of you will recall that I was pointing this out as a bit of a risk spot. It always is. Previous highs always present a point of resistance. It did actually break through, and it came back all the way down through here. This red candle in here, you know, this one right here, was a real red flag. I think when that happened, you know, I was certainly talking about, you know, we should be getting out of the market here. And you can see what happened. Big down month. That's 1 month's worth of trading, and it actually shows up, you know, in that longer term time frame. So it really was quite a significant event. But of course, since then we've rallied. So we bounced off those lows. Did those lows match up? Not really. It didn't really match up anywhere in the past with anything significant in terms of a support point. But, you know, it did. It may show up on the other indices in the United States, and that might be why it stopped there. But it turned around anyway, it's headed higher, and to everyone's amazement, it just keeps going higher and higher. And of course, now we're back up at this resistance point on those monthly charts. I guess the other factor that might come into play is this upward red line here. So if we were to hit that red line, and maybe if we zoom in, we'll see if we have, that might also offer a difficult point to get through. Okay. Now you can see that we've got that same process occurring here, whereby price is actually, the squeeze momentum indicator is looking like it's a bit bullish. And so yeah, absolutely, prices could head higher. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Again, that's broken through the 0 line on the MACD, that's heading higher. It looks like it's in a pretty solid uptrend through here, and until that crosses over on the monthly, you're probably feeling pretty confident in the direction. If we go back to the weekly, so the same chart, this is the Australian index, and you can see that we've broken about above that old high from way back in 2000 and what was it? From 2007, and here we are, we've come up all the way here. So it's possible we could go higher. I'd be really interested to see what happens, if we do go higher, what happens when we get up to this red line? That's what I want to know. Could we head lower? Absolutely we could. I think if we breached this red rectangle and this upward trending, what's it called? Moving average, if that was to breach on a solid candle down, I would be looking to get bearish. The MACD is rolling over on the weekly, so our longer term perspective is that we're kind of getting to a point where we're perhaps thinking that we should reduce our exposure in the general share market. And down here you can see that the Bollinger Band percentage has rolled over. And as I said before, once we cross that one line and head below that, to me, I really value that that indicator when that happens. To me, that is often a very important event to take note of. It didn't occur on this occasion. You can see that the price really just ignored it and it kept going higher, even though the Bollinger Band percentage indicator was heading lower. So that's something to think about. You can see eventually it does have a little bit of a mini crash, but again, we get that turnaround and off it goes again. So, where does it end? It's really difficult to tell, but we'll have to play that by ear. We'll probably have a better chance of knowing where the top is by zooming in and looking at the shorter term. Okay, you can see here we've rolled over. We've had a bit of divergence, so the price is headed higher, the indicator's headed lower, but you can see that it's just looking like it wants to break through and head higher again. If I zoom in, see how it's broken through and heading higher? That might indicate that stocks are going higher as well. Okay, but again, we just don't know. We've got to play that by ear. If it rolls over and we get another cross of the black line as it rolls over and heads lower, I think that would be quite telling in terms of where we go in the future. And as I said, that Australian dollar looks like it's rolling over, so that supports higher prices. So that's the daily chart. You can see that currently, Friday the 18th, and you can see that so far this is a bit of a down day. So is it the beginning of a downtrend? Possibly, or is it just an anomaly and we turn around on Monday and head higher? That's a possibility too. A lot of this will depend on news flow, stimulus talk, and going into Christmas, things can get a bit volatile and a bit quiet, so you never know, it might bust through there and head higher. Alright, so that's the Australian All Ordinaries Index. Okay, so now we'll move over to silver, and I might just zoom out to the longer term picture. Hold on, that didn't really work out. Do it this way. Okay, the longer term picture. Alright, these are again, they've been drawn in the past. You can see that price has had some volatility in the past. This is way back in November 2008, where we had a low We rallied significantly up to this high at basically, let's call it $50. I might just draw that in real quick. I've posted other charts that show where I think silver will go in the longer term, and I will tell you that it's a lot higher than this old high here. I've also heard people talk recently about possibly hitting this old high by, the end of January. So that would make this candle absolutely huge. That seems a bit unrealistic to me. It seems more like this trend, this sort of angle of ascent is more likely, which would put it somewhere up in here in, 2023. Seems a bit more realistic. But you never know. Stranger things have happened. Just look at Bitcoin. Okay, so you can see that we had this downtrend. We tapped that high, and then finally, what month was that? That was July this year. We broke through that, had a really sustained rally. We had a high. We went higher the following month, and since then, we've descended in this fashion here. So it's turned around. It's hit its peak, and you can see that it rolled over right there on this indicator. So on the monthly, longer-term time frame. Really, what I think we've seen here is this breakout above that point there. We're now chopping around here, consolidating before we actually head higher. Now, we could be in the stages of this new uptrend right now. We need to wait and see how that plays out. When I go down to the smaller time frame, you'll get a bit of an idea about what I'm expecting or what I'm seeing happen literally in the last week or so, which does have me quite bullish on the price of silver. And I think gold will follow. Okay, so we'll go down to the weekly. Okay, here we go. And again, you can see that if I draw a few lines on here, this downtrend, there's that high. We head down this way. It becomes a bit clearer on the shorter time frame. You can see we've just really poked our head above here. Now, because this is a Heikin Ashi candle, it doesn't show the breakout. If I swing over to this one, you can see that actually, yes, we have broken above. And it's Friday, so this candle is about to complete, and it's going to complete, unless we get a big breakdown tonight, it's going to complete above that downtrend line. It's even clearer on the daily chart. All right. There it is there. Let's drag that down a bit to match that up here. And you can see that we broke above that on the 16th of December. I posted that to a number of people, and I said I think we're leaving the train station, and we've gone on with it since. We've just had a bit of a pullback. What I wouldn't want to see is this really pull back much lower really than where we're at. I want to see these close points, close and open, I want to see them hold overnight. If they don't hold and we get a close lower than that previous bottom on this candle, that to me would be bearish, and that might indicate that we might actually come all the way back down here, stop, and from there we'll see where we're at and see if we turn around. You can see that on the on the daily we're oversold, so yes, we could pull back down through this one line, and that would support a case for lower prices over the next number of days, perhaps till the end of the year. And that might be a point where we turn around and head higher. Okay. If, however, we bounce here and actually close positive and we create what's called a hammer candle, like this one, then I'd say that's very bullish and we're absolutely going to head higher. Okay. You can also draw these lower connections in too. Okay. And you can see that it makes that descending triangle and then that breakout. So we'll see how that goes in terms of price. Okay, I'm just going to zoom back out to that weekly. And again, the other thing that makes me bullish is we've seen that crossover down here. So, if we get something like, here's another one here, I mean, imagine this taking place. That really does support the case that we could end up, at $50 by, as I said, what was it going to be? If we do the same thing, what's that time frame? That's from May to August, so that's about 3 months. So by March, we could be way up at $50 way up here somewhere, perhaps not there, maybe up here. So we'll see what happens. Let's get that back in shape. Look at it in Australian dollars. Alright, same thing. This is where we bought some silver initially, and you can see that was really good timing. We've rallied since there. We've hit that top. Again, that downtrend is in place. Perhaps it's might be about there. It shows up better on the daily. Go to the daily, have a look at that. And there it is. So look, it is pretty common for breakouts to occur, and then we hover around for a bit before we do go higher. So that's that's realistic too. First stop might be these previous highs here in Australian dollars at $37, and that would be very positive. Okay. Again, we're looking like we're going to roll over and go lower. So I think we might just find ourselves bumping around a little bit here for a few days up to the end of the year, and then head higher. It depends what news is released. I mean, that determines everything. But you'd be surprised how often the charts tell us what's going to happen before it occurs. You could argue that maybe we're doing something like this, or that this is actually horizontal. There's a bit of validity in that. You can see that it tries to break lower, it fails, and then rallies higher from there. But I do believe we're in the infant stages of a major rally in both gold and silver. So we'll play that by ear and see what happens. So that's where we're at with silver. Okay, so here's Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not something I trade, but I do find it fascinating that we have some people pouring money into something that's totally digital, electronic, and not a tangible thing that you can hold in your hands. But that's why I've never invested in it, and I've been very wrong about my decision not to invest in it, because had I had faith in it, we would have done very well. But such is life. That's how it is. It's not really a clear upward trend line. Take it all the way back there. You might argue that might be the line there, but you can see it only really touches it once. So it's a little bit difficult to tell. Maybe that's because it's just working itself out. I will clone that and just see if there's anything in that. In terms of a channel, no. And that's just because the rise has been so exponential that I can't make that work. So if I do it by eye, is it something like this? Possibly. If that was the case, that would indicate much higher prices coming for Bitcoin. If I extend that out, maybe as high as, what's that? $204,000. Wowzers. Now, I would point out that, we've broken through in the past. You can see it breaks out through here and has a really good strong rally. I guess the question is it going to happen again? Let's get that right there. It's close enough, isn't it? There it is there. So, are we going to get the same thing where we rally really hard? It's certainly been on fire, and it's certainly heading in the right direction. So 3,400. That was a nice turning point through here. Indicators here do indicate, yes, it's turning around, heading higher. Remember, of course, this is a 1 month chart. Each bar is 1 month of trading. So, probably the indicator was there that this was going to go. But I just didn't have faith. I watched it happen. I did not have faith. Again, here it breaks through, and you can see that it's really headed higher again. If this black line, if this rounds off, it actually heads back through this zero line, I think that's probably the point where we'll see the top. Because it does tend to coincide. You can see that it breaks down through it right here, and there's that low. And it breaks through it right here, although that's not really the low, the high. Anyway, we'll see what happens with that. So that's your monthly. Look at the weekly. Other cryptos are basically making the same patterns, however they are not nearly as, well, Bitcoin's been the leader. So there's that breakout on the weekly, heading higher. Things are looking bullish. It tried to actually fail here, but then right when it was about to fail, it turns around, breaks out and heads higher. It's quite a bullish setup for that to happen. It works out here. See how it's about to break down, turns around, and then it goes for a bit of a run. Down here it actually does break down, turns back around, goes for a bit of a run. So, that's not a bad option too. Okay, let's do a weekly, let's do a daily. You get to auto these things. So this is your recent time frame. That's that previous high at basically, let's call it 20,000. It just smashed through that. When was that? On the 16th. Same day as gold. And by the way, one of the negatives about gold is that it competes with Bitcoin for investors. And at the moment, clearly, Bitcoin is the preferred investment over gold. And that's why it's done so well over this time period. And the question is, will it continue? Is there any real value in blockchain technology? Investors seem to think so. So we'll see what happens with that. I think this will keep running for a bit more. I think eventually we'll get to, once we actually get this to cross down, then we might see it have a bit of a break and pull back to that breakout point at 20,000. So could we see it come down here? Yeah, we could. But we'll wait and see. So that's Bitcoin too. Thanks for listening, watching, and stay tuned. I'll keep you guys updated.